Okay, we're back to our third segment, which immigration was in the news this week, a pretty hot button topic with President Obama announcing that there'd be some leniency for young immigrants to stay here. Most people would surmise that that means the Mexican issue, the Mexican immigration issue, although he didn't specify an ethnicity. Stan, very, very briefly, explain why this is a good thing, if it is.
Well, what Mr. Obama did was he said that immigrants who came to the country illegally, but when they were very young, under the age of 16, who are not now older than 30, who completed high school or a GED, who are continuing their education or in the military and who have no criminal record, don't have amnesty. What they have are work permits, and they have an opportunity to live and remain in the country and work and that sort of thing. Now, you could make a good argument that that's a fair thing to do, as Obama said, the right thing to do. Because
is it the right thing to do?
Well, these kids are here through no fault of their own.
Right.
And in fact, there are a number of prominent Republicans, including Marco Rubio, who would agree with this. Several, at least I think he would.
Now, where did this come out of? This just came out of, this all of a sudden was out there. Is this an Obama? Is this a feather in his cap?
I think it was a very clever move. I think the way that he did it was despicable because it violates the Constitution. It's another power grab on his part. He doesn't have the authority to make this kind of change. In effect, he is legislating by himself. It's an imperial decree. But, that said, he is gambling by reaching out in this way to try to, in fact, buy Hispanic votes. He is gambling that because we're so close to the election, the Republicans and others will not challenge him on this for fear of losing Hispanic votes, and he may be right.
Now, didn't Romney, not Romney, but Marco Rubio, the Florida senator, didn't he come up with some kind of similar measure?
Yes, he has his own idea, which he put forward to counter the dream bill that the majority leader of the Senate, I believe, put forward, which didn't get anywhere. Rubio's idea, as I remember it, and I didn't check on it before our discussion, but as I remember it, was very similar to Obama's announcement of yesterday, which leads me to believe that Rubio would find at least some things to support in Obama's announcement, although I leave that to the senator, obviously.
Well, Bobby, let me ask you, and not to cut Stan off, but he gave us a pretty strong dissertation on this. What does this all stand with you as the average person that isn't necessarily plugged into the politics on the inside?
Like Stan, I don't like the way he did it. Not so much of the topic. I personally believe this is going to come back again and bite him, as I said on another topic last week. There are a lot of people that are very angry about what he's done. The only way we're going to find this out is come November. But I think, again, he counted on getting the votes, the 800,000 plus people that this impacts. I don't know how many of them are registered voters, of course, or their families. But I think it's angered way more people. And it just goes to his attitude on certain things that people are disgusted with, as you made reference to. So I think this is a negative for him in this campaign.
Well, let me ask, and we'll wrap it up with this. Is this like a chess game where he gets the first move maybe on stopping Romney from getting a vice presidential candidate that has Hispanic background to pander to those voters?
I'm sure he was pandering to the voters. I don't believe Romney, and I can't speak for him or his campaign or strategy. I don't believe he is counting on that same block of votes. I don't mean Hispanic, I mean the people who this impacts directly.
Right.
I believe he will focus his efforts on those that feel, just like I had mentioned, are very angry over this power grab during the political year.
Well, as the months move on, it'll be interesting, Stan, to see where that goes. And that'll conclude our segment here on foreign and national issues. Back for our final segment here, and we're going to look at concluding it with the issues of local budgets and spending, and you know, the idea of people just struggling to make ends meet. Bobby, being someone that has watched government in action in New Smyrna Beach for a dozen years or so, where do you see the issue of, my information that I'm getting is that in the next couple of years, the reserves that have been used to artificially lower the tax rate or the millage rate in New Smyrna Beach is going to be gone. And right now, there's this burgeoning, this just ready to explode pension issue, especially the firefighters and to some extent the police officers, which means nobody's really gotten a raise, and they've been short-handed because of that. Where do you go with all this?
Like the drop program that we talked about earlier, these pensions are simply unsustainable. The elected officials that we have do not have the backbone to address the issue. That's why when it came to the fire and police, we've gone to impetus. Why? It's an election year. Not one of them up there has the chutzpah to stand up and do what's right. I know this means a lot to the rank and file, but I know that the rank and file also understand it's unsustainable in its present form. I don't see an answer forthcoming because I don't think the five of them up there, including the city manager, are ready to tackle this problem, thus the impasse.
But the city manager, who makes well over a six-figure salary, 125,000 plus benefits, she can leave in the next year or two. But the taxpayers are going to be left with the bag. Stan, how can we continue this way of spending when the housing market has just not come back as quickly as people had hoped? And these assessments are flat all over the county. I mean, Morgan Gilreath, the tax assessor, says it's just not there. So where do we go with this?
What Morgan Gilreath has said is that we don't have so much a problem of taxation, we have a problem of spending. That the
Right.
county is spending much too much money, but
Because the assessments aren't carrying it.
Exactly, but with specific respect to the pension question, I would like to see the numbers. I've not seen the numbers for New Smyrna or for the county or for any of the cities here in the county, but I can tell you that in a great number of cities in the country, in the state of California, in the state of Wisconsin, in the state of New Jersey, and to a lesser extent in the state of Florida, concern over how to make payment for increasingly bloated pension requirements is pushing some states toward bankruptcy. And this county is not so far away from bankruptcy, not necessarily as a result of that issue alone, but it is a problem. I think that that what we need is sunshine, which needs to flow into these numbers and get them out before the people, before the election, so that the people can see exactly what the threat is, if there is any, posed to various cities and to the county by the level of pensions and by the clearly projectable increase in the level of those pension payments versus the decrease in recent years of revenue streams and the gap in calculation, given that the increase in pensions was based upon the supposition, turned out not to be true, that revenue streams would remain at the level they were in boom times.
Well, that's true. Looking back at the history of, for example, New Smyrna Beach, I've looked back at the salaries and the structure, and it seemed to me that when times were really good, especially in the housing market, 8-9 years ago, you started seeing salaries where I think the highest salary in the city was like 85 to 90,000, and it was further down. But then with the potency of unions, with Teamsters, with the police, and fire departments having their representation, it seemed like management was more than willing to give them what they wanted because they wanted the votes. And let's face it, the general public, their participation in municipal elections has been pathetic at best. And Bobby, from our experience that, as these salaries escalated, it seemed like management was like, well, if we're going to give them more money, then we need to be above them because we're the managers. And now you have a situation where you have, almost half of the city's employees are at 50,000 minimum and up, and we got at least a half a dozen, maybe more, in six figures. Can we continue like that?
No, let me give you a point that we haven't looked at yet. This goes back to the discussion on Syria, but not so much Syria, but what's going on the other side of the world. Now, tonight I'll be sitting up there late looking at what goes on in Greece. I mean, you talk about a house of cards. I mean, that card is out of that stack by about 90% of the way. If Greece goes, look out. That's going to have a direct impact on Europe as a whole and this country directly. Where I'm going with this, we cannot keep playing these games locally when we have the financial pressure that we do coming from offshore, which we really can't control, even though the White House just pumped, I think, $150 billion if I number is proper, into the system last week to keep things afloat. We can't keep doing that. That's coming out of our pockets.
Well, with that said, Mr. Tully, I think what we've learned here today is that the world is much closer than we realize. And so for Stan Escudero and for Bob Tully, this is Henry Frederick, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.